Hello, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, apologies for being late. We had a bit of a technical problem, which is something we don't always foresee. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Louise Skuman, and we are going live on Stories. And Stories is a concept that we started with a couple of years ago. Well, actually, just 1 year ago. And it's all about learning to embrace and celebrate your own cultural identity. And if you'd like to know more about stories, you are welcome to check things out. First of all, you can go visit us on our website. It's called sstories.co. And there's been written a couple of blogs over this past year. And you are welcome to dig into it and maybe there's some questions that you have about your own cultural identity. Is it something to pursue, to embracing? Is it not? Maybe you've got some questions, and there's different blog posts that we look at different aspects of that. And then we also created a free resource, which is called My Time to Shine. Sorry, let me just... so that is our website, and you're also welcome to go and check out this free resource. It's called pages.stories.co, and it's My Time to Shine. And that is a free resource where you can go where I talk a little bit about your own cultural identity, why it is important. So I would like to invite you to go and check it out. And then in the beginning of this year, we started with a podcast, and the podcast is called We Talk Story, and I have a co-host. His name is Caleb Bannister, and we dig into the stories of different people, and you have the opportunity to get to know other people's stories. Learn about other people's journeys, about their own cultural identity, or even stories about cross-cultural engagements and how that brought life in their relationships with people. So I would like to invite you to go and check that out. You're welcome to go and you can check this out. It's on anchor.fm at We Talk Stories, or you can go to our YouTube channel called S Stories, and you can find some of the episodes there. So without further ado, I just would like to invite Selby in. So let's just welcome him. Hi, Selby, can you hear me?
Yes, Louise. Hi, Louise. And hi, everyone
Hi.
that's tuned in.
So I want to just say thank you so much for joining us today, Selby. It was a bit of a short notice, but it's really great to have you with us today. Me and Selby's journey goes back about 12 years, and it's been I remember the first day I met Selby. I don't know if you remember the same day, but in a way it's been very significant, because me and him wouldn't have been where we are today if it wasn't of us meeting at a place called Kibbutz Al Shoma, and we were teammates for a couple of years together, and it really put us on a journey in our lives. And so Selby, thank you so much for joining us today. I would first of all just invite you to just share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and where you find yourself right now, and why you're there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Louise, for this opportunity to just share also my story and my journey as well. I believe that all of us has something to say, and our stories are important. So I'm Selby. I am 27 years old. And like Louise said, I had an opportunity to meet a few years back as we started sharing, um, started working in the same ministry. And so I am Selby. I was born and raised in Worcester, a small town in South Africa. And that's where everything started for me. I remember I was very shy. I couldn't talk in front of people. So this for me is another level, even to just be out there. I feel like this is even more because it's for everyone. Everyone can see this. And yeah, so but the Lord really came, and I feel like He handpicked me out of a place, and put me where I'm at today. And yeah, I've been in this ministry that Louise was sharing about earlier for almost um, more than 10 years now. I started when I was in school already, and I always had this desire to please God. I was in grade 9 when I gave my heart to the Lord. The very first time, I was in high school, so it was very challenging. Um, and it was also through a ministry that is our sister ministry, or our, yes,
Mm.
um, called Island Breeze. They came to our school, and they shared um, their message through their dances and their stories. And that day I felt in my heart there was a burning sensation in here. And I got up and I gave my heart to the Lord. And it was the best decision I've made ever since. Because when I look back and I see where I've been and where I'm now, it was just God. And that's why
Mm.
I feel like it's important to be obedient to his voice, and to his call, and whatever he's saying, it's important for us to follow in that. And so yeah, that's where it all started for me. And I am currently, so like I said earlier, I am in South Roots, the ministry Louise were mentioning earlier, for more than over 10 years. And in the beginning, I must share this also, it was very tough because I am a colored, and there's certain expectations in my people group. And so when I finished school, I had this thing that I knew that the Lord was calling me to missions. That was now just after school. That was in 2011, I think. And yeah, so I knew it was God was calling me. And I went to my parents, and it was the most fearful thing I could ever do, because imagine you going to a colored auntie and tell her that you are going to do the Lord's work when you have been in school for how many years, and now it's time for you to give back to the family. And but I knew that that was the thing I was supposed to do, with a lot of things in my mind also going on, like how am I going to do this missions, and where's the money going to come from? First of all, that's the most important thing. But God was so faithful. He Because he is our promise keeper, he's our provider, and he is who he says he is.
Mm.
And so I started my journey with missions in 2011, and I saw the end of God, and that made me decide to walk in obedience every day of my life, every step of the way. And that's why I'm here today. And with that, like when I started my discipleship training school, a lady, she's currently now working in the community where I stay in. She said to me she wants to partner with me, and in that time I was like, what do you mean? I wasn't sure what that what it meant. The first time when she told me, and I went to my leader because I was confused, and so she said to me, go ask. And so I went and asked her, and she told me, I want to stand with you on this journey as you embark on this unknown journey called missions. And she paid my full lecture fee for that year, and that's where I saw the hand of God.
Mm.
Um, and today, long story short, today I am in a beautiful nation called Namibia, because out of obedience.
Mm.
I came here with my team a few years ago, and I said to them, we were working on a project with the kids here in the community, and I said to them, guys, something stole my heart. Yeah, and I feel like I felt at that moment that this is home. And I want to start something here. I want to see something that we have here in Namibia, in Rehoboth to be specific. Um, and So we left, and I still had this. I don't know. At that time, I didn't even know how or when or anything yet.
Mm.
And we went on a tour in South Africa, and we went to, I think it was PE, and we went to the specific church, and we had a service on a Sunday, and one of the pastors came up and prayed for us. And this pastor, he did not know us. He saw us the first time that specific Sunday,
Mm.
in fact. And so he prayed for us individually. And when he came to me, he said to me, the Lord showed him that I was somewhere 3 months ago, and this place has been in my heart, and he just wants to confirm that that is the place where I'm supposed to be at, and I shouldn't fear any, or I shouldn't worry about my family and the provision for
Mm.
my family, because God is gonna sort it out.
Mm.
And the rest of my friends looked at me, and I looked at them. I'm like, okay, yes, Lord, okay, this is now confirmation. And so, yeah, that's why I am here currently in Namibia, this beautiful nation, where I believe God has made room for me.
Mm.
But most importantly, out of obedience.
Mm.
And yeah,
Mm. Thank you, Selby. Yeah, it's amazing the journeys that God takes us on, and I think if we commit to following His voice, it's always a journey, and it's something that's more than we could ever imagine for ourselves,
yeah,
and that is really a testimony of who God is and the things that He want to take us on, and the journeys He want to take us on in our walk with Him.
yeah,
So you are a singer, a beautiful singer, and you have been involved with worship teams for many years. And yeah, just this past week, I started also to talk a little bit about worship on my platform stories. And
yes.
yeah, I would like to just hear your heart about worship. Why do you feel like it's important? We're going to get to another story a little bit later, but I first of all just want to hear what's your heart, what's the things that you have discovered about God, and during times of worship, what is the things that you feel is important in a worship time? Um, yeah, just things
Yeah.
that you have learned.
Um, it's so interesting. Yesterday we had a talk. So I'm yeah in Rehoboth. I am serving in a church as well. And yesterday I we just had a talk of like what does worship mean to us.
Mm.
And the one thing that I felt like that was the most important of everything that was said was um, the relationship you have with God. And earlier, as I prepared myself for this time, I listened to a I think it was a teaching, yes, of Stephanie. And her surname is so hard to pronounce, but I was listening to one of her teachings she was sharing, and the thing she said of worship was, and I believe that is the key of everything when we speak of worship and when we talk about worship, it starts in your inner room, in your secret place.
Mm.
There everything should start when we speak about
Yeah.
worship, because when we come into a corporate setting, it's more of an expression of what you
Mm.
already experienced in your inner room. And so, but you can only worship God in spirit and in truth
Mm.
if your relationship with Him is in right standing. Because you can have a beautiful worship leader up front, you can have whoever is
Mm.
leading you to wherever, but if you are not in tune, if your relationship with God is not what it's supposed to be, then you are not going to experience the fullness of who he is. You're not
Yeah.
going to experience the fullness of his glory, of his presence, of his
Mm.
love, of his goodness,
Yeah.
because you have to have that already in your inner room. And so, yeah, I think, I believe that worship for us starts in our inner room. And then
Yeah.
out of that, it's a natural flow out to in the daily things that we do,
Mm.
whether we have fellowship with people, or we
Mhm.
are in our workplaces, or wherever we are walking past in the road or driving past, um, because worship is everything. It's not just
Yeah.
music on a Sunday
Yeah.
or when we come together as a corporate to sing, but
Yeah.
it's our daily life. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
think worship, like I said, comes out of your secret place, your
Yeah.
relationship with God.
Mm.
And yeah,
Yeah, it's so true
another
what you
thing
said.
that
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Louise, I also said another thing is someone said it, I think it was my leader, Shanette, I'm not sure, but I know I heard it somewhere. Someone said, you can't take people yeah, you can't give people an experience, or you can't take people to a place where you haven't been.
Yeah.
Um, because if I sing all my life, you have been faithful, do I know what I'm singing, or am I just
Mm.
singing words to a song that I know, or am
Mm.
I actually testifying of His goodness?
Mm.
And so, yeah, because yeah, you have to already experience that before you can take people to that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking about worshiping God in spirit and truth. And I think sometimes in our walks, in our lives, Lord, there's aspects of our lives that we feel ashamed about. And if I think
yeah,
about my own story, the reason why stories exist is because there was a season in my life that I was ashamed of my own cultural identity, and that was being an Afrikaner. So in an essence, in a way, some aspects of me was not part of the worship, in a sense, if I worship God, because there's an aspect that God has chosen me to be born into. He chose for me to be born as an Afrikaner in South Africa,
yes,
into my specific family in a specific time frame, which was sort of in the middle of apartheid. That was
mm,
his divine choice for me, but I had to get to a place of really coming to terms with the fullness of who I am, and come to worship God in the fullness of who I am, without that shame of an aspect of what God has created or given me as part of who I am. And I
yeah,
know you had a bit of a similar situation and a very specific thing that happened. And
yeah,
I know it's maybe something that people haven't even thought about before, or haven't
yeah,
really been challenged with, but because we work so much with um, embracing your identity, but also about the redemption of cultures. That is what it's all
mm,
about. Hey, what the ministries that we've been a part of is not just that people groups or people individually come to a relationship with God, but also that who we are in our people, in our nations, come to be redeemed and to come into the fullness of the glory of who we are as a people to worship God. And
yeah,
yeah, I invited you today to share that specific story with us, because I feel like there's so many things that can maybe be something that will be an answer to somebody in some of their questions they might have about this.
yeah. Um, Hearing what you're saying as well, it reminds me also of something my leader said also. Um, God already placed evidence of himself in each people group, like the
Mm.
Afrikaners, the Zulus, the Khoisans, the Xhosas, the Coloureds, the Hawaiians, the Fijians. And so I think for us as the church, we have been so fixed on religion, and we haven't like really asked God to show us his character within other people,
Mm.
because we have this preconceived idea of what church or what religion should look like, or a relationship
Mm.
with God looks like. But I think the question we should ask ourselves: wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves, whatever people group we find ourselves in, where is the character of God? Do I see it?
Yeah.
And in fact, ask yourself or ask God to give that to you to so that you can see it. Because
Mm.
sometimes we don't have to preach, we just have to see where God has placed evidence of Himself
Mm.
within a people.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so I have been on this journey where I'm colored, and I, and we are also, as South Africans, we there's always been a thing of we don't know where we are. We are a bit of that, we're a bit of this, and we're a bit of that. But we are now, we've also now been recognized as the foundation nation. So of the first people of the land, of
Mm.
Khoisans, of the Khoisans. And so I've been on this journey, trying to see what that means to me, what that is, because it's about the people of our past and
Mm.
where everything started. And yeah, so we, like Louis said, we are in a ministry that focus on cultural redemption, and
Mm.
culture is it's a big thing for us. And so we experience stuff in what we do as a ministry. We have been we have been exposed to stuff that we not normally speak about in church, necessarily, or most of the time not. And and so we had a conference in 2017, Louise. I'm not sure. I think it was
Yeah, I think it was
2000.
2017. Yeah.
And so um I we were at a specific church, and we had a whole setup of an opening for this conference. And so we had our different cultures and different expressions, and like I said earlier, we God has placed evidence of Himself
Mm.
within different cultures, and so we wanted to display that.
Mm.
And so I had my Khoisan Feliki on, um, and I think that evening it was when I saw the people that was sitting there, and I knew that we were also in a church setting. Immediately, I felt like this is not acceptable. What I'm wearing, because so we had an opening ceremony before we started, and then we went straight into worship. And I had my felikis on. Basically, I was half naked. I only had, I think, tights on just to cover my under parts, lower part, and then a feliki in front and at the back, and then on the top I also had a feliki on, and skins.
Mhm.
And I went to my leader because I felt what's the word, intimidating,
Yeah,
because
intimidating.
there's pastors, yes, pastors is leaders here sitting, and I mean, this is going to be very challenging for them. I don't think this is going to be suitable for what we are going to do now, and especially in worship. Um, so I went to her and I said to her, Shanette, what is the possibility for me to, is there going to be time for me to quickly change into something more appropriate to worship in? And she asked me a question that really shocked me at first when I thought of it. She asked me, what is wrong with what you're wearing? Because whatever you're wearing should be acceptable before God, before His throne.
Mm.
And this is also who you are. as a descendant of the first people, and that shook me right there. But in the back of my mind, I still thought of how is this going to turn out at the end of that service or of the opening. And so that evening we did the opening, we we did what we did, and we went straight into worship. And I forgot all about what I was wearing or what I was having
Mm,
on. And I just worship God in spirit and in truth and also in freedom, because I think in when we started and we did our opening, I think I forgot about the fact that people are sitting and people is going to look, and there's going to be judgment and there's going to be
mm,
questions. um I just worship God for who he is. I think, like you said earlier, we had a conversation, me and Louise, before we
mm,
came live, and she said a very important thing, that we shouldn't focus on people. We shouldn't focus on whatever who's gonna say, especially when it comes to worship. It
mm,
should be Our focus should be on God, because we are enthroning him. It's not about the pastor or whatever
mm,
leader, whatever president or whatever whoever. Um, our focus should merely be fixed on God.
mm,
And so I think that evening, the focus was on God, because I experienced such freedom like I've never experienced before. I broke out in my dancing like I love to, and I was just free in that time. Um, but I think also within the church setting, and I've experienced this in my own church as well.
mm,
Um, Also being in South Roots and in my journey, I always had this longing of whatever I experience, the freedom I experience in the worship times we have with when
mm,
we have it. I wanted that same experience in the church, but
mm,
for some reason I felt it wasn't there. There wasn't a freedom for expression, even though I always knew that people had an what do you call it, a hunger or
a
the desire
longing.
to,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
to break out in expression. And I saw that, like,
Mm,
in my vision, if we just let go and let God, especially in our churches,
mm,
we will experience him in who
mm,
he is. And
mm,
so I think we are so fixed on our religion and how things, we have to do this now, we have to stand up, we sing three songs and then we are done. But that evening we worshiped.
mm,
And the one thing I love about whenever I worship with South Roots or Island Breeze, and even now in the church that I'm currently serving in,
mm,
whenever we worship, praise and worship, we had times when we don't. The pastor felt like we should go on. We are not going to
mm,
have the word. We
mm,
only having worship because there's a presence
mm,
of God,
mm,
and we are enthroning Him, and so there's access to
mm.
His throne, and there's whatever you need in that time, in that moment,
Yeah,
in that space is
yeah,
there for you
yeah.
to grasp
Yes.
and to grab. And so, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing. It reminds me so much of that moment where David was dancing in front of the ark, bringing the ark into Jerusalem, and
Ye-
it's just that freedom, and and
yes,
and it's about God's presence, and it's really being
yes,
that freedom brings the freedom for somebody else to experience
yes,
God and to have access to God, I guess, and that is something that is so important, so needed, because, and then
yes,
exactly what you just said, the last couple of words, because in God's presence, I always get that picture of in Revelations where it talks about, come to me, come buy from me,
mm,
come without money, and just come and do that exchange. Come and bring the
yes,
brokenness, the emptiness, the
yeah,
nothingness that we sometimes have, and just come and have that exchange before God.
yeah,
And I think sometimes, I think what we're trying to say today, no, it doesn't mean that um, we're not worshiping another God. We are worshiping God, the creator of
Yes.
the heavens and the earth. We worship Jesus, who his son is. We worship Holy Spirit, and there's nobody else that we worship. And that is to come in the fullness of who we are. And it's about um, creating a platform for the person next to you to come also
Yeah.
just as they are, sort
Yes.
of ushering them into the presence of God. So I
Yeah.
think those are the important things and the keys, I think, that you are actually sharing with what happened that day and what you experienced that day, because I'm
Yeah.
sure your freedom was also somebody else's freedom. And my
Freedom. Yes.
leader really loves to say that. So your freedom is somebody else's freedom. But we also acknowledge that your freedom can be a stumbling block for somebody else. And we know sometimes the people that's listening, some people, it might be a bit of a stumbling block at this point. But I want to encourage people to really come and seek God out and ask him
Yes.
about this for yourself. Right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing also, because I, the story that you just shared about David, I also,
Yeah.
yeah, felt I should share on that as well. Um, it's and I've read the story of David in like, and the one thing that really stuck with me is that David was a man very close to God's heart, and
Yeah.
he was always with him, just like God was with Moses and with Joshua.
Yeah.
Um, he was
Yeah.
with David, and he knew
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so many times when we come into the presence of God, I feel like we're so focused on what people are gonna think or what
Yeah.
people are gonna say. But I feel like in those times you really need to break out like David did,
Yeah.
because I feel in this time, in this season, especially the time we are in now, um, whenever we have worship sessions or when we have corporate worship and the presence of God is evident, we should be hungry to
Yeah.
grab what He has for us, because I feel like in those times we have access, we have so much
Yeah.
freedom, um we have the ability to get the things that we've always longed for, we always
Yeah.
desired for, and so we just have to let go, and
Yeah.
not worry about whatever whoever is going to say,
Yeah.
um because now I'm focusing on God, like you said earlier, Louise,
Yeah.
and I'm expecting Him to move the
Yeah.
mountains for me, to
Yeah.
bring healing to the things that I
Yeah.
am still struggling with, or to bring freedom in the things that I'm still facing in my life, in my journey. Um, yeah, and just receive the pour out of His presence,
Mm.
of His love, His unconditional love.
Mm.
um yeah.
Mm. That's great. Thank you, Selby. So, yeah, our time is really running out for today. But I just want to say, Selby, wow, thank you so much for really sharing from your heart. I'm just wondering, has there been people that you shared the story that you experienced this was something that really was like a key for them? Have you had this kind of conversations before, or not really yet?
Do you mean worship in general?
Worship
I
and
mean,
even that specific experience that people actually needed to hear that to bring an element of freedom for them specifically in their walk with God.
yes, I had this. I had an opportunity in church. I feel like whenever we engage in worship, it's one of the most important things to
Mm,
say or to voice, because I don't want people to miss out on an opportunity where God can bring provision or healing or whatever
yeah,
we need. And I feel like even in this day and this time, like Moses and David and all those people, they had miracles, and
yeah,
God did it for them in front of their eyes. So,
yeah,
and He says even in His word, He's going to do greater things for us. So
yeah,
I want to see healing happening. I want to
yeah,
see people free, in church in
yeah,
the times of
yes,
worship. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I had an opportunity to share that. And sometimes it's challenging because people are not there yet
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to be free like that yet.
Yeah.
But I trust God is going to do what He needs to do. We are
Yeah.
merely just His vessels, and we
Yeah.
just have to do what He asks of us and see what He will do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Salvi, you actually referring to a song, the words that you are referring to about Joshua and Moses and David. I was wondering, would you
Yes.
mind singing singing a small part of it, if you don't
Yes.
mind?
I
I'm
think, yeah,
putting
the
you on the
chorus.
spot. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. If He can do it for Moses, He can do it for me. If He can do it for David, He can do it for me. If He can do it for Israel, He can do it for me. If He can do it for Joshua, He can do it for you. For Moses, you part the Red Sea. You chose a shepherd boy to be a king. The walls of Jericho, you made them tumble down. You sent your only son to set us free. And
Yes.
you are everything I need and more. And you are everything I need and more.
Yeah.
Everything I need and more. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Salvi. Yes, Lord. And that is, I think, the message we want to leave people with today, that
Yes.
in a place of worship, there's a breakthrough, there's a place
Yes.
of exchange that can happen.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you so much for sharing, Salvi, just sharing your heart today. I appreciate it tons. You are welcome to reach Selby, I'm sure, on his different platforms. Selby Williams on Facebook and Instagram, eh?
Yes.